You can kill the big one, the extra one. It shouldn't be on anyway. Just the regular one. I don't know why. That's on.
Okay. I don't want to waste your time, so we'll go straight.
That's good.
Yes, that's perfect.
You don't want to waste my time, so
No,
we'll go
just
straight.
I will go straight to.
Well, how would you have wasted my time? With some fan thing? I had a feeling. What was it? You want me to sign something?
No. Okay. Let's start. Okay.
Are you putting it closer to you or closer to me?
No, it's the same.
Indeed.
We are quiet here. It will
Yes.
And I mean, I have to tell you, but I think you suppose that it's really a great honor to be here.
Good.
To talk to you, and I will let you understand during the questions how we. I speak for me and for a group of people that are working with us, with me.
We are going to take over the world? Yes?
Yes.
We're going to take over the world.
And okay,
Don't tell anybody.
no, we're really happy, and it's quite strange that your work and your art impressed so much a lot of artists in Italy, because I spoke a lot with a few artists, and once they knew that I was coming to you, they were so impressed, because it's like you created the way to handle a superhero in the 70s, and now this actual artist are the one who grew with this kind of comic books, and it's like even if they didn't have a chance to
You're saying that I'm the Beatles of comic books.
I don't know if you are the Beatles, but they are 50 today. But it seems that even with not so many comic book issues, you managed to send these people to the direction. Okay, that's the impression we have from the other side of the world. I mean,
I am the Beatles of comic books.
Okay.
All four.
You have not to share with anyone.
No, Ringo, me and Ringo, like that.
I've read a few interviews of you before coming here. I did my own work.
Okay.
And I felt like there are some few red lines that pass across your life. I mean, you are following some passions, plus than one. So
or you're reading something into what I do.
No, let's talk about your passion. So, comic book, actually, it was and it is for sure one of your passion.
Sure.
And when you did
perhaps
sometimes
I would say storytelling, which you can't do very well in illustration, although my interest is in illustration as well. But you can't tell a story very much in illustration. So, I mean, maybe Norman Rockwell can, and I can. Yeah. There's certain people who can. But the opportunity to tell a story is greater in comic books than it is in illustration. So, from that point of view, I feel I'm a comic book illustrator to a greater or lesser degree, not making one better than the other, but that is the application of my abilities, because I like to tell a story. So telling a story is more important to me than the art.
Well, at the end, after many years of your career, you arrived to write and completely handle the stories you were drawing.
Actually, I did that at the beginning. I did Superman versus Muhammad Ali. I did the Dead Man, most of the Dead Man stories.
Yeah, sure, I remember.
I did a fair amount of writing on Ben Casey, the comic strip that I did when I was a young man, and when I was a teenager, and I did advertising comic books. I wrote advertising comic books and advertising material. I actually am very experienced writing.
So it's once you were drawing, let's say, Green Arrow rather than Brave and the Bold or covers for Superman. In that period, DC asked you just to draw.
It's not so much they asked me to draw; it's that I was not being paid sufficiently well enough to make an effort to write and draw. I would periodically write a story. For example, I did a thing called One Hungers for Marvel Comics, a short story. I did a story about a little boy who hides under a bed in a haunted house. But at the time, you'll notice I was not inking the stories as well.
Yes.
I was basically doing the thing that would pay me the most, which was to pencil comic books, not to write or to ink. Periodically, I would also ink certain stories if I felt attached to them or I felt my mojo was not working properly. I would ink, but I didn't have other people write stories because I thought they were better writers than I was. It was all practical. I had to make a living. Sitting down and writing takes a certain kind of mindset. I was doing advertising art very, very much, and so
you thought that once you arrived at the sea, you were not someone looking for a job because you already worked for
although I worked in advertising for years, advertising isn't as regular as comic books. You could do an advertising job and then not have another job for 2 or 3 weeks. What was good about comic books was that they filled in the time. There was always a job on my desk, so if I did advertising, which paid maybe 4 or 5 times as much money.
Well, they have a different market, so you can have more gain.
Yes. So what would happen was that when I would finish an advertising job, I would pick up the comic book job, so I would have continued income. I was raising a family. I have 5 kids. I have grandchildren now.
I have seen one, the daughter of Josh. It was at the booth yesterday.
Actually, she's not the daughter of Josh. She's the daughter of Sari, who is Josh's girlfriend. Okay. May become, obviously not right now. And so my responsibility in a time when artists were paid so poorly that they had to scratch for a living and do other work, I did well. I've done well all my life since I got out of high school because I was never an artist in the sense that I would sacrifice for art. I was practical, and
I've read about this. You already told in a few interviews this thing. I mean that there is a way to put the art in the commercial market. So
right.
You have to understand that there is a way you can act like just do my own art. I don't care if someone wants to buy or not, want to pay me to do this or not.
Right.
But this won't pay your bill.
And yet, if you are anything of an artist, you can always find a way to express yourself within the framework. Now, the good thing about comic books was that they were more free. The bad thing is because they paid so little, I didn't get that much of an opportunity to write doing the comic books, and it was on a practical basis. But I was fortunate enough for both at at DC Comics and at Marvel Comics to get the 2 best writers that they had, so I really didn't have anything to complain about.
After a few years you arrived at DC, you were able to choose the job.
I would say quite a bit before that. Almost immediately. I mean, I always made an effort to please. And the things that I did, I was quite happy to do. But when I asked to do something, they pretty much gave it for me to do.
I read the funny story about Stan Lee asking, "What do you want to do? What is your worst selling title?"
Right.
And he said X-Men.
Well, it's interesting that Stan Lee was asking me what I wanted to do, and he said I could do anything, and I said, well, you can't have me do anything. Obviously, you have artists that are working on different titles, and he said, no, you can do any book you want, and I said, well,
just kind of
why?
Who's working now?
Why are you saying that, Stan? That seems kind of brutal. He said, well, to be perfectly honest, Dead Man is the only book here at Marvel that we read. Yeah. So pretty much he was going to let me do anything. And it turned out very well for Marvel, I would have to say, because after those 10 books, we created the legend of the X-Men that has gone on to today.
Yes, I read you told that essentially all the things you put in those few books were the same that have been taken in the future future issues to
it didn't seem like anybody
to revamp.
It didn't seem like anybody else was doing anything, so I did it.
Regarding what I told you about the fact that with the essentially not so a big production, let's call it short, not because you didn't want to work or you were late, just because they started asking you to do covers, and so your time was used to do covers, and essentially let's say with the 100 comic book from 60 to 70, you impressed so much a lot of future artists in this market. Oh, just one thing. You told me what you liked when you started. That is storytelling.
Yeah.
And now it's quite the same.
Oh yes, I love to tell stories. I love to tell stories in interviews. I love to tell stories in classrooms. I love to tell stories in conversation, and I love to tell stories on paper. So I love to tell. I think that that's what mankind is. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting is that so few people like to study history, and history is the greatest stories. And in fact, if you were to study filmmaking, outside of the dramatic, family, friend-oriented movies or television shows, or the superhero genre,
the moment.
You have historical novels, stories, and television shows and movies. Alexander the Great, all these stories, they make up the bulk of our literature. So it's not just me that likes to tell stories. We all like to tell stories and to view stories. Frank Miller's The 300 is a retelling of a famous story. So that artists are drawn to stories. It is not so much that I like to tell stories or even other artists like to tell stories. It's that all artists like to tell stories. And the sad thing is that until now, until the comic book, we have been kept very much away from telling stories. The idea of painting a painting and putting it on canvas and putting a frame around it and putting it on somebody's wall, to me, is a total waste of an artist's time and effort. I mean, we're meant to communicate. So we have gone through this process historically of painting on the walls of caves to tell a story, to doing frescoes and tile pictures that tell stories in our own homes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
To painting on walls and telling stories in Egypt or Mesopotamia or whatever, telling stories where in fact what you're reading
something
is
that people needed from the beginning.
What you're reading is some of the images are words, some of the images are pictures. Essentially, you're reading a comic book. It's a strip. You read the little pictograms, and then you see the picture of the man and his wife and whatever, and then you read more pictograms. Essentially, it's not a series of drawings. It's a series of storytelling. It wasn't until the Dark Ages, until we went into this crashing religious oppression for 1,000 years, that we essentially destroyed the story. I mean, in ancient Greece and Rome, stories would be on vases. You would have a vase and would tell a story about the Olympic Games or whatever. Not necessarily good stories, but definitely stories. And so we were a storytelling people until the Dark Ages, until everything came crashing down. And when art came out of that time, suddenly it turned into wall decorations. Rich people would paint people to make wall decorations and make statues for the religious and